What up, everyone? How are you today? Sunday here, 10 December. We're getting ready for a new moon in Sagittarius coming up here early this week. Welcome to the conversation. I'm just glad to be here, glad to be discussing it with you and having a moment to share this astrology. You know, I think astrology, so much of it is about sharing and connecting with other people through the kind of way that we can collectively kind of see things simultaneous with others and bond with people over the shared sky that's above us, right? That's one thing we all share. So there's some kind of connective, grander way that astrology brings human beings together as a kind of strategy for collective, fulfillment or something like this. Maybe that's another video, but let's just dive right in to this new moon in Sagittarius. Here is the presentation. I said here when I was writing this, more of a free-flowing live. That was kind of be my intention. I didn't have a lot of time, so I was like, I'm just going to do a more free-flowing live. But then I ended up writing this presentation and building out some stuff that was a little bit more deliberate. So we'll try to keep it free-flowing as much as possible. I'll try to stay engaged with these comments, but I guess attitudinally, I was just thinking, and this has actually been one of my philosophies of astrology content creation recently, is sharing what you're inspired by. It's like we're all paying attention to the astrological movement, to the ephemeris, to the news, to our lives. And you will have inspiration if you're doing that. There will be things where you're like, wow, that is so cool. That's what, in my opinion, you can publish about and share about, because there's a reason why you found it inspiring. Other people are also going to find it inspiring. So I'm trying to do more of that this year. Oh my gosh. Hey, everyone. From where you are, welcome here. I'm really glad to see everybody. And so I'm going to cover some, things that I find interesting about this new moon in Sagittarius, other interesting upcoming transits. So I'm going to do less of that. I think when I wrote this, I intended to do more of that. But there are some upcoming transits that are fascinating, local, and that do relate directly to this new moon that I think we should all be aware of. And so let's just dive right in. 12 December 2231. In Iceland. Shoot, I guess, did Iceland change WAT+1? I wonder if that's some kind of time change. Usually I picked Iceland because of UTC. This should be UTC. So I actually think it's not UTC. The UTC time is 2332. So Iceland is not going to be my default location. I'll have to check that. I wonder if they had some kind of law that changed that. My impression was it was always UTC everywhere there for decades and decades. So I'll have to research that later. But here's the actual time that's definitely UTC, 2332 for this. So where does it put us there? Tuesday. We're here Sunday. So over 2 days before this arrives. The moon is not yet in Sagittarius, I believe, as we record this. Let me check my handy app that I use. No, we've got a lot of time here, a whole day. The moon is not going to enter Sagittarius probably until tomorrow midday at some point. So still more of this Scorpio moon, Scorpio Venus moment. I don't know how that's been for you all, but a little bit intense. I'm seeing people online talking about how maybe there's been some challenges there with it. I know for me, a little bit overloaded and things like that, but we're going to come out of that into this new moon moment here on Monday, and then Tuesday evening, UTC, it will peak. America, that's going to be afternoon. All of Europe will be in the evening on Tuesday. Down under Asia will be Wednesday morning. A part of what I was thinking about with this is that we had that full moon in Gemini back a couple of weeks ago, and now we get a second, what I call syzygy, other people call lunation, or new moon or full moon, in the mutable axis. And there'll be two back-to-back that have Mars and Saturn squaring by sign, also kind of throttling this mutable axis with the malefic energy. And so what do I have here? The mutable flux, signifying disordered, unrestrained expansion in fall of 2023 continues. It's worth just thinking about, how has your mutable flux been, or these malefics in the mutable signs with the new moons and full moons activating that square? If things have felt chaotic after eclipse season, I know they settle for me. I mean, I find eclipses to be a whole nother level of chaos. And these kind of more regular transits that aren't eclipse centric can be a little bit, easier in a certain way. But certainly there's probably challenge and obstacle in people's lives. Mars square Saturn, particularly in that mutable sector. So it's worth just considering. And the thing about this new moon is it's the second and the final of this series, post eclipse season mutable activation. And so, let's see here. So there you go. I mean, that's the main thing to think about in my view with this moment, is how the mutable axis gets throttled basically a second time, and to know it will be over soon. So it's the good news encased within the so-called bad news, which is often the case within astrology, because we know when things are going to end. That's why we use astrology to time reality, to give us hope and vision. Okay, so let's just push onto this next slide. Mars and Saturn. I want to say this. I've been seeing a lot of like Mars Saturn slander on X Twitter. It's kind of like the favorite pastime of certain people there, to just kind of bash Mars and Saturn or relegate them to just the horrors, and they have no other role in astrology. And I strongly and firmly disagree with that. Even from an ancient astrological perspective, you can pick up Vedic Valens, and there's all kinds of powerful assignations to these planets that are not so-called negative. You read Dorotheus, you read Firmicus, any of these guys, and you go deep into the delineations of their texts. These are not only like throttle you, destroy you, kill you, maim you. That's not what these are. Okay, they definitely are that's part of what they are, but there's these whole other sides where they become powerful. And so what do I have here? Not only harmful. Saturn is necessity. That's the key word that I would encourage you to think about. What is necessary? And that's the core of Saturn. And then everything else forms around that core energy. This is the Valens' keyword, by the way. Saturn becomes the planet of necessity. Valens, what does Mars become? The planet of action. And so within necessity and action, yes, there's some difficulty, but there's also some great power. Necessity is the mother of invention. That famous quote, I don't know who says that. I don't know who to attribute that to. But necessity, I think in my days, like I wake up in a day, and if I didn't have to do the things that are necessary for me to survive, I probably wouldn't have as good of a day most days. Like I got to wake up, get the clean clothes, like go do the laundry. Having clean clothes is so amazing. And I had to work for that. It's necessary for me to do that effort to make the positive happen. And so that's how I like to think about Saturn. It's out from what is necessary is born what Valens calls great ranks, right? Great ranks. You're risen up. And some of you in the comments here may know this, but one of the Islamic astrologers, what Saturn gives can't be taken away. I think that's attributed to like Abu Mashar or Ibn Ezra or something like this. But this is the idea that there's these very powerful, great things that only Saturn can birth with us because of the necessities we're confronting, right? It's real things, deep and profound and real things. And so, I want to encourage folks to kind of see these planets, and we have to, because we all have Saturn and Mars. Does that mean that sector of our chart is just blown up for permanently maiming us? No, absolutely not. We're all working with these energies and trying to come to understand them. So let me see here. I'm going to check some of these comments. Let's see. Form could not exist without Saturn, Mars. Yeah, that's a great comment. I mean, the Saturn is that structural foundation. I mean, it's that gateway, right? I think about it as when you go to the 12th house as the joy of Saturn. One of my favorite ways to look at the 12th house lately has been a castle that we can retreat to, maybe even on high ground, right? And what does a castle have? Parapets that are like these stone things where you can like shoot out from. So you're getting protected from enemies. That's the meaning of the 12th house in the ancient tradition. It's our enemies and obstacles. And Saturn joys here because you get that form that contains you and protects you. And so I like this idea of form not being able to exist without Saturn. And we need form. We need form. So, okay, I'm not going to say much. I'm not going to do this whole thing on Mars. We'll come into it later in the talk. But the other thing about this, you see hard aspects with Mars and Saturn in the new moon, and like we're freaking out, right? Oh no. But squares and oppositions are not only difficult as well. They move things, they propel things, and they create dynamic circumstances where out of necessity, we're forced to act. That's what a square and an opposition does. It's not free flowing like a sextile and a trine. It's forcing one's hand. It's putting the cards on the table, going all in if you're a poker player. And then it just the move is comes naturally after we're forced into something. Okay. So it's good to remember that with this new moon, these aren't wholly, things to be afraid of. Rather, they're things to kind of feel into, understand the quality of of the operation, and then move within your reality. I mean, if you're being forced into things right now, or if there's some challenge that and necessity is kind of boxing you in, that's just what's happening here. And there's some kind of invitation there to move beyond, okay, where your stasis, okay, your post-eclipse season stasis. All right, going to keep moving here. Let me hide that comment and just keep flowing here. This is, you saw the Katniss Everdeen image there that I picked for the thumbnail. I just think it's quintessential Sagittarius. Katniss Everdeen, astrologers for like hundreds or thousands of years. We're going to be using the Jennifer Lawrence Katniss Everdeen for Sagittarius, mainly because of the bow, because of the fire element. I think that's embedded in the symbolism of the Hunger Games. There's like a bird and fire, I think. I'm not an expert on it. I've seen the movies. I loved them, by the way. I saw all three in the theater. It's some of my favorite films, just to go enjoy the narrative richness and the archetypes that they were playing with: good, evil, power, and then the underbelly of the struggle against power. Anyhow, let me come back here. Fight the power. This is kind of another theme that I think can bring us, or that we're being brought into with this new moon, because Mars is earlier than Saturn, earlier position. Mars has the upper hand. And so this is the time to fight against Saturn, right? And so that's maybe one way to think about it. Now, certainly we can go into all of the geopolitical stuff. I'm not going to do any of that here. I want you to think about it in your own life. What if this last week and you've got some necessity that's emerged and it's like tough and challenging, etc. This is the time maybe where the new moon comes and the sun seeds the moon, and there's the birth of some kind of new idea here, or new phase of this Mars-Saturn square for you, where maybe there's clarity around what does fight mean for you right now? What does fight mean? And we could pick another word. Fight the power is a Public Enemy reference. There's a song when I was growing up, used to be really popular, early hip hop. But you could say, act such that the powers that are, upon you can kind of assert self through action against those powers that you're operating within, something like that. We can translate that so it's not as, harsh. But Katniss, remember, doesn't want to fight. If you go to this film, she's not trying to fight. Okay. She's forced to, because her little sister gets chosen, and Katniss is like, oh no, I'm not going to let her little sister was guaranteed to probably not win. Katniss knew she had some skills with the bow. And so out of necessity, she fought because of love, and that is what I want you to think about in this moment. Maybe there's something where the circumstances have pushed you and you're kind of prodded a little bit, and there's something emerging here where you just know you have to do it. And what a beautiful thing, right? To get clarity around that. That's what the hard aspects and the malefics can do for us. They show us where to struggle, where to deploy our power, and to choose the struggles we want to engage in. So, and I just come back here. That's the fire element, bow, truth, right? That's Katniss. The bow, she's skilled with that. That's the Sagittarian. And then truth is Sagittarius. It could be a Sagittarian thing. We're impassioned by fire. Fire is real. It's the things that feel real, that when we experience truth, it moves us to get engaged in reality. It's an outward sign, Sagittarius. We're engaged because we feel what is true for us. And then we're moved to go out into the outer world. And that's the whole story of the Hunger Games. I'm not going to talk much more about the Hunger Games here, but I just wanted to bring it in because it was what I chose for that thumbnail, mainly because of Sagittarius. But I think it does, with the Mars-Saturn square and Mars in earlier position, because this is all about fighting the power structure of the empire of the world of that film. And I think there is something here where maybe there's some fight against whatever is the little empire in your own little world, and trying to maneuver and be honest and be passionate to communicate your truth. All right, let me come back here and just check some of the comments. Hello. Form cannot resist individual practice sharing and teaching of astrology. Thank you, Whitney. I'm so happy to get to share it and to be with you. Mars at 2-degree orb aspecting trine to Chiron and Aries. So on the next slide, I have the chart again. I'm going to show this. Let's come into this. Looking at Mars 2-degree orb aspecting trine to Chiron and Aries. Here's Mars, and at 13 degrees, 20 minutes, and it is aspecting Chiron there by trine. Yeah, that's interesting too, isn't it? I mean, if we come back to this idea of fighting the power or struggling to acting against what has created a sense of necessity in our lives. Chiron's a part of that because it's sad. Life is sad. It's the Bob Dylan. Life is sad. Life is a bust. All you can do is do what you must. That's a line. Buckets of Rain, I think, is that song. There's a sadness when we come in with Saturn, right? This idea of necessity. That's a theme of Saturn. Pick up balance again. It's like grief, sadness, loss, death. Any grieving that you're going through from something that's gone before is going to be probably Saturn is involved. And Chiron is part of that too, And so here's Saturn, planet of grief, being squared by Mars. And then Chiron also ruled by Mars in a free flow here. It may mean we have access to our grief, and that can help inspire some of this action. And I think that's wise. My thing about Chiron, how I think about it is we're not healed yet, right? Or we have scars that's never going to be healed. But yet we know them so intimately, we can heal others because we know what the wound is specifically that's still there with us. We carry our wounds for to serve the greater realm. So yeah, I like that, that's there. I think that's an important part of this moment. Thanks for sharing that. Kitaki, 2 crows. Appreciate that. Okay. Let me come here. Thank you. Great to see you. Found Katniss as an unlikable pro tag. I'll share this one. I'm going to go back. Yeah. Katniss is an unlikable pro tag in the books, though. Okay. Yeah. I haven't read the books. It makes me curious, though. I bet the books are a whole world in and of themselves. All right. Let's come to the next slides. Get into your seasonal wind down and reviews. All right. These are every season as the sun is the weakest. It's not very light out in the Northern Hemisphere. Down under, you've got a whole different version of this. But, the Christmas time, the holiday time, there's very much a wind down time. The time people are off. Is that the same? I'm wondering down under, I guess they probably take Christmas and off. Probably there's some holidays. I don't know if they have a similar wind down, but up in the Northern Hemisphere, that's what this whole season's about. And what better time to have a Mercury retrograde to help us with that? And Mercury in this chart is stationing retrograde. It stations retrograde a mere 8 hours after the new moon perfects. Mercury will actually then be moving backwards. It's stationing actually in the chart of the new moon, but the retrograde movement doesn't begin until a few hours later. But you're going to have a full Mercury retrograde station from the 13th of December until the 2nd of January to wind down and review. I'm going to use this greatly. I want to just rest and review and reorganize. It's in the earth element, Capricorn. And this is going to become important later, how prominent the earth element is right now for things like, getting clarity around what we want to have in our materiality, that a Mercury retrograde can help us review and excise and let go of things as needed to get ready for what's going to be a wild 2024, wild energy. And I love that we get to end 2023 and start 2024 with this review element, partly Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. The other part of it will be in Sagittarius, but Jupiter there is in Taurus. We're going to come to that in a second. Okay. So SJ, where do you stand on Saturn being masculine or feminine conversation? Honestly, I put it more in a gender flow. So I don't know if non-binary refers to the flow, but multi-gendered. I think Saturn is like Mercury, and there's a multiplicity of gender with Saturn. And I was actually thinking about this recently. This came up with a friend of mine. We were talking about Saturn in their chart, and what I was reminded of is a carcass. I don't mean to get too dark here, but think about a carcass that's decaying. All genders are going to go through that. And that's what Saturn is. It's that decay and entropy. So it applies to all genders. But there's certainly archetypes with like the crone. You've heard of what is it, like goddess, mother, crone. There's this like triplicate in terms of the archetype of the feminine, that you might have Venus as like goddess, or like a more nubile, fertile. Then mother was the moon, and then crone would be Saturn. So it kind of fits with that triplicate. I like including it there. In terms of masculine, I just think a power of Saturn, and there's certainly a warrior component where you kind of come against, the just power of it, and it's triplicity. It's a fire sign triplicity lord with the sun and Jupiter, and then Mars, of course, ruling Aries. So I do think it can fit there too, where you think about these kind of more of a masculine archetype of like the unmovable force or something like this. So I just put it in like a Mercury camp. That's personally how I do it. I like both. Okay. Let me come here. Summer vacation in the Southern Hemisphere. Sam, thanks. Okay. So yeah, but I mean, do they get like a week off for Christmas down there, or what's that like? I mean, so either way, if there's time off, there's reviewing that can happen. And I think that Mercury retrograde can be good for you there. Let me see here. This time of year is always depressing for me. Yeah, it's there's not much light if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and reviews and family and all of that. Look, Capricorn, I'm going way off here right now on all kinds of topics, which is fine. We'll push through. Like I said, it's going to be free flowing, but Capricorn is the depressing part of family. Okay. In a certain way, because the moon and Venus are triplicity lords, main triplicity lords. So that's like our family, where we come from is the moon. We're born out of that family. And Venus is the relationships. And then it's the Capricornian, which is like the serious, heavy, maybe even the legacies and families. And I think that it doesn't always have to be depressing. Look, I love some of my family, but there's certainly sometimes looking back at where we come from, like this Capricornian model. It's the tarot we're kind of enslaved by our family lineage, in a certain way. I think one definition of life is living to free ourselves from that familial conditioning, or to integrate it so we're not bound by it. That might be like a definition of what it means to be alive, or like how to live well. And that is triggered here with Capricorn. I remember there's a period of my life, and it was like, holidays were so bad. I was so depressed during the holidays. And I think it was during a time when I was doing some of my family of origin work. And once I did all that, I was able to kind of appreciate them in a different way. Not that you have to do that, or anybody else has to do that. But okay, let me keep going. I'm just going to kind of move through these. Hibernation for sure. Let me just add this one. This looks interesting. Add script. Saturn, also the age where they say men and women grow to be more alike again, as they were in youth. Yeah, like in very old age, we're all kind of just like little babies again. And that's both old, whatever your gender is, whatever your biological gender, whatever your, whatever you are, we're all going to go back to that if we make it that long. So, okay. So, I'm just going to keep pushing on here. I mean, we can go into this Saturn gender conversation. There's some really cool stuff. Okay, one more just to show you all, because this is a Vedic perspective. I'm not as versed in this. Kataki 2 Crows Vedic has 3 transgendered grahas. Saturn is feminine, who acts as masculine. Mercury is feminine, who acts as masculine. And Ketu as neutered. Okay, thanks for that, Kataki 2 Crows, that backdrop. Looks like the Vedic is kind of aligning with at least how I prefer to look at it, with Saturn and Mercury having that match. And by the way, Saturn and Mercury are a match for other reasons. I mean, they're the air element. And what about the mind, right? The ideas. You don't need a gender for that. Everybody's got an intellect. So there's something about the kind of non-gendered way that the mental nature of humans, and Saturn and Mercury ruling air signs by triplicity and domicile, that I like that. I think there's something there. Okay, let's keep going. Main summary of this slide, get into those wind down and reviews, get excited about look backs with Mercury, reevaluation, and all of those things that Mercury retrograde can give you. All right. Derived houses from the new moon. I always have been doing this. I want to do more of this here. And this is a major theme. It's going to come up in a few slides. It's the relationship between Sagittarius, the mutable fire sign ruled by Jupiter, by domicile, and the Taurian, where transiting Jupiter is right now, in the fixed earth sign Taurus, ruled by Venus. This is a major theme of this moment of astrology. And it's not just that it's the new moon. This started on 10 November when Mercury entered Sagittarius, and will be around until Venus leaves Sagittarius in January. We have this exchange between these two signs of the zodiac, and therefore this exchange between these two sectors of our charts. So it's worth going here and saturating a little bit into trying to extract what this might mean for us all, because it's kind of a hidden thing. We haven't really talked about this as much, I feel like, collectively, and let's do it now. And it's because, Jupiter rules here. It's the 6th house from Sagittarius is Taurus. And so those materiality reviews that we just talked about with Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, stationary retrograde in Capricorn, especially around health and daily grind, themes that are the 6th house. You may want to consider with those reviews you're doing, how's your health right now? How is your health like after eclipse season? How has your health been in 2023? Are there things you need to tweak? I think Capricorn is a major sign about health, because the moon is a ruler. and Saturn is a ruler. So it's like, what do we need to let go of? How do we need to be more abstemious? What don't we want to eat for the holiday meals? Like I think it's a great time to be clear about that. I really think this astrology sets us up for New Year's resolutions. I haven't been big on that. I'm the kind of person, how Saturn is this, every day can be a New Year's resolution. That's my personal philosophy. But with this astrology, you get great support for a New Year's resolution. And this wind down before with Jupiter and Taurus, so many planets in Sagittarius, that being sixth from Sag, Jupiter and Taurus, health and the daily grind may come into play and come into focus. I think another side of this, and I didn't write this here, is that Taurus is pleasure and like there can be a rest component there. And I've talked to a few people. A lot of people are burned out. I mean, I know that's always going around to a certain extent, but I think kicking off your 2024 with some kind of plan around digital diet, I would advise you to do that because of how digitized 2024 is with Pluto in Aquarius and Jupiter in Gemini. This could be some kind of more earthy bodily grounding that is not so digitized in terms of health. So I think that's a theme that comes in here. Okay, let's push. Building to this, and this slide is related to it because I was just alluding to this. We're building to this January 1st transit, this moment here. It's the Sagittarius. I was going to say Sagittarius. You hear that as a kind of funny joke that people say online. I'm not. Look, I love Sagittarius. I don't mean to give a pejorative to it. I mispronouncing there, and it sounded like that Sagittarius slander you see online. But we're building to this because the Sagittarius Taurus moment that is we're in now, new moon in Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter and Taurus, it only deepens because on the 29th, I don't have that date on this slide, Venus enters Sagittarius on December 29th. Venus then is in a exchange of signs with Jupiter. So Jupiter needs Venus in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius, Venus needs Jupiter in Taurus. It really goes more so into this theme of, and I'll talk about it more here. The main thing is that the excitement of the Sagittarius, just as Mercury stationing direct in Sagittarius with Venus there too, and Mars is lingering there for another couple of days, that's very exciting, forward-moving energy, right? But yet we have to stay grounded. We have to temper it with grounding. And this chart is great for that. And temper it with the kind of grounding. I think about like a camping trip would be a perfect analogy here. You're going to go out on the trail, go see some things you've never seen. But what if you got to think about your tent, your rations, your map. I mean, all of this sixth house stuff. Like, how are you going to stay healthy when you do an exploration there? How would you do that? Those are necessary considerations to ground in so that the excitement is tempered. And I think we need a dose of that here now. And as we build into this moment here in January, we're going to need a lot of this Jupiter and Taurus grounding to help guide us and kind of ring in some of that and temper it so it can be even more, positive or beneficial or useful. All right. So Venus and Jupiter exchange signs, Mercury direct, Jupiter direct on the 30th. It's going to be like three things happen. Venus enters Sagittarius, starts exchanging signs with Jupiter. Jupiter stations direct on the 31st, depending on where you are. And then Mercury stations direct on the 2nd or 1st, depending where you are. It's like three things that are building to this very powerful moment on the 1st of January. And then the 8th house themes are in play. If you reverse it and you say, well, Jupiter and Taurus, if we center that, how do we ground? Well, we have to go to 8th house, shared materiality. What are the material structures that are part of your excitement, right? This can be like, do you have your passport? Do you have the money on your credit card if you're going to travel? Do you know about like where to find the ATMs that are cheaper? All of those 8th house themes that can then be part of how you might make you more comfortable and be able to enjoy a Jupiter and Taurus. So, okay, let me keep going. Actually, I'm going to check some comments here. Firstly, is nowhere as knowledge as the rest of your followers about astrology, but I'm going to take stock. I'm reading this. So let me just show you here. I'm going to take stock of one of my most solitary years by choice. Yeah, and I think MT doctoratory. It's a great month to take stock and a great half of a lunation, new moon to full moon, to take some stock. So I think you're tapped into that astrology with that. Let me see here. I'm just going to come through here. I'm going to show you this here. Derived houses from the new moon. Didn't know we can do that. You can derive houses from anything, anywhere, at any time. and it gives you information. Especially the reason why I think it's important with the new or full moon, because we're trying to understand those luminaries, its body and self, light of self. They're centered in all of our astrology, sun, moon. That's why people say sun, moon, rising. I'm not mad about that at all. Like, do these sun, moon, rising readings. Let that contemporary or modern practice thrive. You know, you come to something like, and I'll just say this now, I know I'm getting on the side here, but the Egyptian term scheme, the only two planets that don't get an Egyptian term are the sun and moon. And when you read why, I believe it's Antiochus or Retrograde, they say because they're whole, they're rulers of the whole. So they don't need to be subdivided. They don't have to share anything. They're the whole selfhood, sun and moon. And then, of course, we trace their relationship to the sun and moon with the syzygies, the lunation cycles, and then the eclipses, right? That's how, and the nodes are about the path of the sun and the path of the moon. So I kind of view astrology, if we're going to derive from something, the sun and the moon are a great candidate. In the ancient text, you do a lot of fortune and a lot of spirit, which are sun and moon points, right? The distance between the sun and the moon and the ascendant. So you see Valens and others deriving from a lot of fortune and a lot of spirit. So I feel like there is a tradition, at least somewhat tethered to the notion of deriving from sun and moon or new moon or full moon. So, okay, that's there. But it's not something that, it's kind of something I've been doing in my own kind of inspired way. I don't think there's writing on this or anything like that. Part of why I decided to do it is that I want to get more information about, like, how does it work with Jupiter in its relationship to the new moon, and that's how you would do it. You know, it's sixth from the moon, so it naturally brings in some kind of tonality of that. All right, so okay, let me come in here. Hi, Astrofly Insights. Hi, SJ. Do you rate the Sun, Merc, Antisha, and the new moon chart? You can. You know, it's not something high on my list, but there's Antisha practitioner. Some expert Antisha probably has a whole thing there, and they're really excited about that. It's not my wheelhouse. It's not something I would extend here. My first thought is, how close is the Antisha? You really want to have a tight orb, in my experience, like within a degree, because Antisha is all about exact degree similarity and contra Antisha. So that's, if it's too wide, let me just check it here. The Sun, Mercury, Antisha, in my view, that is just too wide. That is not, it's just the degrees are this is like 7 degrees and some change, almost 8 degrees. This is 10 degrees and 44 degree minutes. I just don't consider that an Antisha personally. All right, I'm going to keep moving. Cheers from Southern Oregon, Dave. Cheers to you. Hey, everyone. Okay, so let's keep pushing. Let's see what else we got here. So the truth, this is my little meditation on the Taurus Sagittarius relationship, because of how prominent it is in this new moon, and then in building and continuing into the beginning of January. Truth is in the doing so often. The expansion comes from experiential knowledge. So Sagittarius, expansion out, Taurus, like the inner state of knowing something, because we know how we feel in our body or through experience. I like experience as an earth element keyword. And so think about it. I mean, you can say even astrology. I remember when I started studying astrology, it all started going 4D, 5D, like full color for me, when I got with other astrologers that I was studying with, and we met. Our teacher didn't tell us to do this. We did it because we were so in love with astrology. We met together to study charts together. And we actually did it more formal. Like, we would all write a presentation, and we would join and kind of do presentations together. And like we had our own little conferences every few weeks or months when we were matriculating in that program. And that's really when my astrology just got lit up. I was actually doing it. And so I feel like that there's something there. And to think about, like, how are you doing astrology? Well, I had to have my software. I had to have my books. I had to have my time that I spent with it. That's all Taurus. That's all fixed earth, grounding into the materiality of that craft. And then I got to do it supported the Sagittarian, the expansion and the sharing of the knowledge. So, think about what's going on in your life right now. What are you getting experience with? What experience have you had that you can convert as this January 1st moment arrives and we sort of burst out with those direct stations? Lean on your experience, the truth of Jupiter and Taurus, the truths that you've been able to glean from Jupiter and Taurus, wherever it is in your chart. It's a big, big part here of the moment. Mutual relationship that isn't always clear. That's an aversion. That's where the aversion comes in, because it's not always logical that, like, if I want to become a programmer, the first thing you think about is, let me do a boot camp, right? Let me go to the teacher. But you talk to a programmer and they say you just start programming. And then those like self-taught programmers are often better than the textbooks and what the teachers can teach. And that's where the aversion comes in. I think sometimes this can be counterintuitive, how our experience is really essential for what we want to then passionately bring into the world. So what do I have here? You do stuff, you learn stuff, you are inspired to go farther. Not always the most intuitive approach. Okay, I've said that. Beautiful here. Hi, everyone. Okay, let's keep going. This part of the new moon is so interesting because it's this story with Neptune. This is one layer here that we've had for a while now. Mercury hit Neptune once. It'll hit it 2 more times in this square. And the luminaries are, that orb's pretty close. I mean, it's a sign-based square if you want to use sign-based aspects with Neptune, but it's a darn close, getting closer orb. And Mars is maybe involved there. What do I have here? Just over 4 degrees, making sense of the confusion. And how am I going to get out of this one? That was my kind of key phrase. If you're feeling the necessity of Saturn with Neptune, I think there's a sense of maybe there could be confusion around whatever you're kind of trapped within. Just honor that. I think it's okay to say, I don't know. And I don't know a lot of stuff in my life right now. I have no idea. And in fact, I don't even want to try to know right now. I just want to drink this tea, talk to you, relax, So you can kind of embrace the Neptune as a spiritual invitation. I generally do it that way. But what do I have here? Maybe a real need to surrender into the disarray that mutable signs can bring, and that the dust is going to settle, though the timing and manner of this resolution may remain elusive. That's Neptune, that's mutability, that's Saturn and Mars squaring in the and mutable signs. Just wanted to honor Neptune a little bit. I know I don't often talk about it as much, but it's pretty close here. I'm sure other astrologers, that's all they're talking about. This is the Neptune new moon, and I personally, not, I want to bring it in, but it's not what I want to center. But when I do think about it, this is more mutable, Saturn in Pisces, and I found out Austin Coppock named first decan of Pisces the Labyrinth. I had the book. I've had physical copies of the book. Okay, you can't get it anymore. I sold it for pennies when I got rid of my hard library, and now it's worth thousands on the market. But anyhow, I didn't remember. He called this the Labyrinth, and that's where Saturn is. But we've got a film, Labyrinth, and I think this film to me was the other film that I wanted to bring in here to talk about the new moon moment. And in this film, Sarah finds herself in a sprawling, fantastical maze. But it gets triggered by this martial event because the brother gets stolen. And then she wakes up and starts seeing goblins coming out of her wall. I mean, how Neptune is that? How insane is that? How Piscean is that? And imaginative is that? But then the film, this is 1986, Jim Henson. It's with David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. The film is her moving through a labyrinth. She navigates it. It's physically challenging. That's Saturn, Mars. It's the confusion of it all. By the end, she has this kind of self-discovery, discovering her powers, rescues her brother, all the Sagittarian stuff, the hero, right? The Sagittarian hero. Jareth is a charismatic, manipulative guy. That's all maybe Neptune. So there's something about the Neptune in relation to Mars, Saturn square, and the Sagittarius Piscean that is maybe part of this moment. And I wanted to add it in here. Dance, magic, dance. Dance, magic, dance, Soulbird's Nest. Yeah, that is, I love it's a musical. It's a musical, right? That's the Pisces too, right? Venus ruling Pisces by exaltation. We can kind of sing through our confusion. And here we go. Dave, make known the unknown, and the unknowable will make you crazy, from Carlos Castaneda. Interesting. I haven't been deep into Castaneda for a number of decades, really. I read so long ago, but yeah, I think there's, embracing the unknown is just what I would say. Like, it's okay to not know. In fact, you don't want to know sometimes. Like, if you were to know, you might explode, right? So sometimes what we don't know is there to save us. And that, I think, can be the form of Saturn we talked about earlier. It's protecting us maybe from Neptune. And as they combine, like, we have some form, so we're not pure dissipation. And Saturn and Pisces is that, right? It gives us some kind of form, so we're not purely washed away. All right, Neptune infused Mercury retrograde. It will be a triple pass square to Neptune with Mars and Saturn in hard aspect. Here's just some more stills from the scene. It's kind of tripped out. That would be like a Saturn Neptune character, the Bowie character. Looks pretty Leo too, doesn't it? There, I know we're not talking about Leo here as much, but all right, let's push on. Let's move on. All right, here's the election. Finally coming to this election. So that's that on the new moon. That's what's on my mind for the new moon. Let's push into this one election for this next phase of the lunation. It's the waxing phase of this lunation. We'll be peaking with a powerful full moon. I love that full moon that's coming at the end of the month. One of the best we've had in a long, long time. But I'm liking this moon in Taurus with Jupiter. Look at it. It's kind of tricky with what the moon aspects in the series here, because it will sextile Saturn, carry Saturn's light into its conjunction with Jupiter, and that's about it. At this time, the Sun and Mercury are also going to be trined by the moon, and then Saturn sextiling. So depending on what electional rules you want to use, I picked this chart because the Mercury inferior conjunction of the Cazimi is now even closer than it is. And in Iceland here, you have the nice 11th house. So you get this Earth trine right here on the 22nd. I think this is a great chart to come back into the body, the materiality, the nature of the environment, our relations, the deeper structures, the values, the senses, all of that Earth element stuff, and that Taurian and Capricornian. So, the theme earlier in this video is like planning and reorganizing your materiality to kind of get ready for the year ahead. This is a great chart for maybe breakthroughs around that, or maybe you have, it's my password down at the, storage unit. Oh, now you remember it. And now you can get into your storage unit, just as an example. But it's a moon that activates the Mercury Cazimi. It's conjoining Jupiter while it's in the degree of its direct station. There's something powerful on the 22nd that is a key moment that will then set everything else up, because the moon is the local trigger, and then it's that inferior conjunction of Mercury. Let me come here, Krista. Let's see what you got here. Love that the Venus is trying to the ascendant and being seen by the moon and Jupiter. Venus and Jupiter and the joys. Yeah, beautiful. The joys are wonderful, wonderful here. I think when I pick elections, when I do these, I actually do. That's like one of my additional layers, or often the last thing I do. It's like, where do you get the ascendant degree? Where do you want the ascendant degree, and where do you want the midheaven? And that's a very wise way to do it, is you get the ascendant trine a benefic if you can. Or in this case, I think the other option I was going to pick was the ascendant here with the moon and Jupiter. I think the problem with that was that the moon was, it was the inferior conjunction was not in the, I'm using here the medieval definition of Cazimi. I'm trying to get it like within 17 or 14 degree minutes or whatever it is. So I think I went with this one. So it's great to point that out. That's awesome. And the planetary joys, what a cool thing for Cancer risings right now with Venus in Scorpio and Jupiter in Taurus, that you get any Cancer rising moment in any location you're in, you're going to have both Venus and Jupiter in their joy. And that's really, really, really cool. And Mars in its joy. Look at that, Mars in the 6th house. So what a cool thing with that Sagittarius Mars to have that too. Okay, let me come off. Thanks for the comment, Krista. And what else do I have here? I think that's it. It's like the planning of 2024. Let me just set all of the other things we've talked about aside. Mercury is the planet of details, organization, noting, getting into the literal kind of writing things down, plans, aka plans. And I'm not saying you have to be a big planner. Some people are huge planners, right? They live off those written notes. Others, it's more free flowing. I'm kind of more free flowing, but even just like one sheet, just write down some plans for the year. I think that would be very wise. And I think I would encourage you to do it. You don't have to elect it with this Cazimi and Mercury, this inferior conjunction Cazimi, but though it might be a good time to do it, but we're in it now. You can keep doing that now. It's going to be here like that, the 2nd of January. And so this is the time. Get into your planning. What are your goals? What do you want out of the next year? Just put it simply. What do I want? Just think about it for a second. Try to see it in your mind. Just doing that for 5 minutes will put you, I think, ahead of where you would be without it. And it fits this astrology. So, okay, here. Bump for McKenna. Yeah, I've got another video I'm editing right now. I mentioned McKenna in it because of the memes. And he's like, the world is a meme-based world. I love McKenna's idea about that. And that relates to the air element feature of 2024. That's how I talk about it in that context. So, All right, let me see what else I got here. So that's it. That's the election. So anyhow, I'm not doing horoscopes. I mean, they've been fun. I just didn't have a lot of time, and that's over for maybe now. The transit update stuff, I want to just point you here. Always catch me here. I mean, we go every month into the major transits. Like some of the stuff I talked about here was talked about in this video. So I want to encourage you to follow me there to see more transit updates. The 2004 year ahead is going to be out soon there. And so look for that. We have a big year ahead. There's a lot of transits we highlighted. We go into a lot. I have no idea what final product will look like because Dan will edit it all. But I know what I sent him, and I'm sure there's going to be great stuff. So look for that. I think that'll come out in like a week, maybe. And so every month I'll be there. So check me there for more transit updates from me. Here's the 2024. Okay, I do have a future transit here. Look at this. Saturn and Jupiter. This is the moment on 6 February 2024 where Saturn and Jupiter are max applying to a sextile that they will never perfect. And this is, if there's one thing, like this is what I'm thinking about mainly right now. Of course, it's Pluto and Aquarius, but let's assume you don't want to look at outer planets. What is the big story right now with our slowest moving traditional planets? And it's that you have Saturn in Pisces still, creative Pisces, ruled by Venus by exaltation. You have Jupiter in Taurus, creative Taurus, ruled by Venus by domicile. These are the great planets. This is an extremely creative moment, symbolically. And I want to just encourage you, what are you creating? What are you making? How might you enjoy this first part of 2024, first half? Like finishing creative projects that you've been involved in for a while or since May. Like what will you give to the world? What are you generating? And it's an extremely powerful theme for the year. My favorite theme. Now, Jupiter comes to Gemini and we get that square with Mars and Saturn. It's a lot more chaotic, but we have this grounded creativity until late May 2024. And so I just wanted to show you that. Let me see here. That's like a major theme. What did I have this here? Want to have more freedom. So my channel, yeah, I'm just hoping to do more of that myself. Like I was saying earlier, I just want to create with what I feel inspired to share at any moment of time. I'm kind of embracing this follow your bliss approach, a looser approach, but to kind of make sure that I'm centering this generativity and these powers. So I wish that for you too. And now is the time to be doing that. So anyhow, I wanted to share that. Look for February as then Jupiter starts speeding away from Saturn. Even though they're not perfecting, this could be some kind of peak of your Jupiter-Saturn sextile story that's been around since May 2023. And so exciting stuff. All right, come to my website, SJAnderson144. Click here to schedule an astrology reading. You can see the planets are always there. I hope to do more on my site in the coming year. But always do that. All right, so I guess I could take some more questions. I'm not going to do the horoscopes. Anybody else have a question or something you want me to speak to before we go? Thanks, Soulbird's Nest. December's forecast was informative. Yeah, that's the goal, trying to just highlight, get kind of while staying high level and digestible, like 30 minutes, just give as much detail and kind of make the audience aware of the bigger stories or the biggest stories. Okay, here we go. Carmela McCall, what's the biggest transit for 2024? So that video, I think we have 11 different things we've highlighted. If you're asking me right now, my quick opinion as I think about it, I would say that Saturn Jupiter sextile is maybe the biggest transit from an ancient astrological perspective. At least one of the most important ones. But I'll give you a quick list here. I mean, it's the air element. That's the video that I'm editing right now. I'm going to release. It's all about air element powers and air element accentuation in 2024. And so what is the air element? Mind, technology, all of the kind of interconnected digitization of our reality. For words, verbosity, real kind of, intangible things. So when Pluto enters Aquarius in January and then Jupiter enters Aquarius in May, that will create a massively accentuated technological and air element infused year. So what could it mean? Things like, I think AI is going to 100,000x from where we see it now. Get ready for deep fakes, all kinds of things you've never seen before. I've never seen before. Can't even conceive of what it's going to do. That's how strange it's going to get. Pluto and Aquarius as well being part of that. But things like, we got an election year with this energy, like the disinformation, misinformation stuff. Like we'll be saturated with so much information. That's why I was saying the digital diet thing before. I think this could be a good time to kind of think about your digital diet, because next year it's going to go wild and haywire. So how do you know what you know? How do you know the sources the discernment through this digital labyrinth? So you come back with that. That's a major big transit for 2024. The last one I'll just add or two more quickly. It's the Chiron eclipse in April, visible from Maine to Texas, right in America during an election year. I think America remains a main player in terms of like chaotic news cycle. And then Mars will be stationing retrograde at the end of the year. We have a long Mars retrograde in Leo Cancer. That's over 9 months in the signs of Cancer and Leo for Mars. But we end the year with that. So those are just a short list. The video, I'm sure it'll be cool, but it will break a lot more down as well. But that's my answer for you there. Will Jupiter going direct make projects less stagnant? Yes, Jade. Thanks for the question. I really do feel that. And I've seen it with some of the people I talk to, that Jupiter retrograde, there has been stagnation. I think it has to do with the eclipses, frankly. You had that eclipse with Jupiter while it was retrograde. We're still recovering from those eclipses in a certain way. And then the Mars-Saturn square came. And so I do think it's kind of a perfect setup for a really productive January. And I do think Jupiter direct is a huge part of that. So I wish you all the best with your Jupiter direct projects and all the kind of creative unfoldment that you can manage, big helping of that as much as possible for you. But the short answer is yes, and I feel pretty strongly about that. I think that Jupiter direct will be exciting. One quick thing about it is it's going to move fast. It's going to speed through Taurus. And the Jupiter direct on 30 December actually is inviting us to consider the May transits with Jupiter, Venus, and the Sun in Taurus. Cazimi of Jupiter meets Venus in Taurus and the Sun. And so there's some major Jupiter and Taurus climax, and then Jupiter and Uranus will conjoin too. That's another big one. A lot of people, it's like on their most important transit for the year. Okay. Jupiter and Gemini, you mean? Yeah, I've said Jupiter and Gemini several times here. I've been referring a few times to Jupiter and Taurus and Jupiter and Gemini. So if I've been going fast and if at some point I misspoke and I meant Jupiter and Gemini, I probably meant Jupiter and Gemini, but I have to hear the context. Okay, don't worry about the horoscopes. Yeah, it's a busy year. Krista, I'm just going to hang out. Well, I'll do as many of these if you want. I'll just hang out and answer questions. I like this. Do you use Chinese astrology at all? Period 9, year of the dragon, beginning along with Pluto and Aquarius. I don't, but I'm fascinated and interested by it. And I'm really curious to see what that idiom of divination, of astrological divination, what that is saying, because I know there's deep truth in it. And that's where this stuff gets really interesting. You have multiple modalities of powerful modalities. When they start lining up, that's when you kind of peak, you perk up and you say, all right, maybe you get closer to some kind of truth when you would use something like Chinese astrology. I did see Year of the Dragon, I think, or was it a water year or something like this? I forgot, but I hope to learn more about that. And I want to. Okay. Let's keep going here. So Rose, Mercury Cazimi on the 22nd. Is a Mercury RX Cazimi significant? Very much so, Rose. Very much so it's significant. The way I personally look at it is that the retrograde station can often be the most challenging and difficult when the block emerges. So often you'll see from the retrograde station to the Cazimi is a period of chaos around the block. The Cazimi can be a turning point where things get easier. And then you have a new visibility of Mercury and then the direct station. So it comes out from under the beams and then stations direct. So it's a major turning point, and it can often be a moment of insight or epiphany around whatever that Mercury retrograde station brought you. So yeah, it's for sure important in my view. Now, you live your life. Maybe it won't be important for you, but if something emerges, look to that inferior conjunction retrograde Cazimi to bring some kind of new knowledge for you or new power. Okay, at least trim it down with discernment, clear your mind for sure. Here's an interesting one. Andrea, I don't see Trump or Biden as president. No, I think it's somewhat likely Biden can fall to the wayside, and then at that point Newsom emerges, in my view, as the guy that'll win. So yes, that's one of the main things of 2024. And just to quickly say, there was a solar eclipse in Aries 3 days before Lyndon Baines Johnson said I'm not going to run again in 1968, with Rahu in Aries. This eclipse in April, I think I don't know, but what if there's another echo where Biden just says I'm going to step down, and then we get Newsom stepping in? Go to a website called electionbettingodds.com. They've got Newsom. He's the second most likely, with like 10 or 12% likelihood to be the president. And I think they've been setting Newsom up with, like, he met President Xi. He's been doing like kind of a tour as if he was the president. Listen to Newsom. I mean, he's as smooth as you'll get as a politician. That guy's like Trump, but like smoother, and like a Democrat Trump, with how smooth and how he can attack and defend. And he reminds me kind of Bill Clinton with how smooth he is. So Newsom won't surprise me at all if he gets in. And I think if it's Kamala versus Newsom, I think Newsom is the guy, because he's such a skilled politician. Okay, so let me keep going here. I'm feeling some more comments. I'm feeling ready to move forward. Mars, me too. Let me just put this one up here. How about here? We're going to go 7 more minutes. So 35 after the hour, we'll end this. But I'm going to just keep going here as there's more of these as I can. I'm looking, Storm the Martian, hi Storm. I'm looking forward to the new Jupiter-Uranus cycle kicking off. Jupiter and Taurus has felt slow to me, and I'm ready for some big changes. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the comment earlier about this Jupiter retrograde, has that been kind of blocking things? There is something to be said about the Taurian being lazy. I mean, I'm never one to assign pejorative phrases to say that's all a sign is about. However, we know archetypes have different sides, and they all have challenges at one level. And this can be one with the Taurus, because it's fixed Earth. It's like just staying on the couch. This is always my favorite phrase. You got the popcorn, you got the cakes, you got whatever pleasures of the flesh. You got the movie on, right? The art, and you just sit on that couch, and there's no way, you don't want to get up. And so I wonder, and I'm excited how cool, and by the way, that's not what I think that's like one aspect of it. There's way more powerful and important aspects that I would center with Jupiter and Taurus that we've talked about them here earlier and extensively here. But I think that Uranian flash of a lightning bolt like a Promethean delivery of fire to Jupiter on the couch, will kickstart something for sure. So really excited about that one too. Big changes. It would be really, really exciting. I'm just pumped about it too. So really cool. All right, Dave, coming into your comment next. In the US, I know quite a few people are silently going for RFK Jr. Biden and Trump sort of cancel each other out. Yeah, Dave, the problem with RFK, and I don't want to get too into this, but there's some news. I'll just say he was going to be an independent. It's very difficult, almost impossible as an independent to ever win the presidency. So he's not going to win. I think that he basically, what came out is he had a relationship with the disgraced financier Jeff Epstein, and that just emerged the deep extent of their relationship in the 90s. So I think that's going to hurt him, because that was the made Pluto in Capricorn story, and Great American Eclipse story, in my view, was the downfall and the revelations around Mr. Jeff Epstein. So then now that RFK Jr. is tied to that, I was going to tweet this out yesterday, but I've been calling him the Pluto return candidate, because he's telling all these truths in one way, but now he's connected to what I thought was the main Pluto return story, or one of them, in a really unsavory way. So, if he does get traction, which I think his traction will be much less now, I looked for him to take votes away from Trump rather than Biden, because most people like RFK Jr. are more of that populist model. And that's not what Biden is. So I see him helping Biden, actually, if he keeps going. Thanks for the comment. Not water dragon, wood or earth, I think. Okay, thank you. Wood or dragon or earth dragon. Appreciate that. We should find that out. And someone will, I'm sure. Any thoughts on the new plague or COVID resurgence, maybe in Saturn's approach to Aries? I am not, I just don't see it. Part of why is that Saturn has changed signs, and I feel like that the medicalization is so much of the Aquarian as a theme that we've moved beyond that, So I'm way more interested now with how much the air element is accentuated. And I'm going to do a video about this because it was so interesting to me. But there's a movie that just came out produced by the Obamas. I think it's called Leave This World Behind. and there's the part of that plot is a cyber attack where the internet goes down. I think that's more of what could emerge symbolically, personally, and it would fit Saturn to Aries, like back to zero, if there's some kind of internet reset. Anyhow, I'm not trying. These are just scenarios. I'm not, again, I hope none of this happens. They seem like very lower likelihoods, but that's what I'm more interested in. With that transit. Okay, let me come in here. A lot of veils have been dropping to expose people in power and their low vibe deeds. Do you see more of this? Absolutely. In 24, I see more. That's what eclipses do. They show us the dark side. The suns get blocked, and then the truth comes out with an eclipse that it's visible across America. I think we'll have more revelations around the kind of the true nature of power. And it's all of it. That doesn't matter your proclivity politically. If you're more of a left-leaning person, you're talking about corporate corruption and corporate dominance of the system, right? Exploiting the lower classes. That'll all come out more. We saw that with the opioid crisis and how those corporations really did a number. Horrible. I mean, I say it in a kind of a glib way. It makes me terribly sad to even think about all those drug addicts that perished because of the opioid crisis. It's devastating, and so, but yeah, or if it's the more right model, where I don't know what they go into, but it's seeing truth about power, and both sides have arguments and vectors of exposing some of that stuff, and I think we'll definitely see way more of that, for sure. Okay, next, Soulbird's Nest. Hey, is there a tarot card you associate with this new moon? Yeah, I mean, we could come in I know it's in the last decan of Sagittarius, which would be the 10 of Wands. That's a beautiful card, right? All those wands. I think it's the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's the family, with all those wands. So maybe there's something with holiday time, being around our family and just being the passion that we can share with our loved ones during this time. I think that decan it's Mercury ruled, moon ruled. Is it Saturn ruled? I can find out here really quickly, but I think it may be a Saturn ruled decan. Actually, sorry, I'm getting it all wrong. That's the card. It is a Saturn ruled decan, and it's the guy that has all of the wands on his back. So I think it has to do more with our burdens than the things that we're holding. It's the fact that Jupiter's sixth from Sagittarius, so it's the sixth house themes. That's what that decan, that tarot card, the 10 of Wands is showing us. What are our burdens that we're carrying, and how do we maybe need to untangle some of those to get a little bit freer here as we get into the new year, using the Mercury retrograde to maybe excise some of those burdens from us. So I would look to that 10 of Wands, and then I would also look to just Sagittarius temperance, the major arcana, the kind of balancing card. And I think that's always a wonderful card to keep in mind. That I feel like it has to do with when we're too inflamed with passion, we can actually lose our ability to usefully deploy it. We actually need to be able to, like these magicians, you have to control the energy, like these Qigong masters. And so the temperance card is like showing us how to control these inflamed passions of the Sagittarian. So I think that's what I would go with here. Okay, this is we're going to wind down here. Maybe this will be the last one. Newsom, ick, big ick. Listen, I'm not. My personal opinion, I'm leaving aside. It's just that he's a skilled politician. Like, I watched these debates, and I was like, wow, this dude is as skilled as I've seen in a long time. And so it's, I see him and I'm like, this feels presidential in terms of just what I know, like the power structure of America will select people like this. So I think he's got like good selection odds, if you want to say the idea they're selected, not elected. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of bad stuff in his background that we don't have to go into here. A lot of times with my astrology, I just kind of operate. I think it's good to operate from the level of the kind of collective narrativization. But everything we can go into, like, I know, for example, some controversies he's had in his past with like some relationship stuff. Like, there's some like skeletons, it seems like, in his closet around some of his past relationships. A lot of politicians have that, but we could start pulling those threads, and it's probably pretty dark there, is my guess. Okay, everyone. I guess that's it. We just hit that 5:35 after mark. Thanks for being with me today, and thanks for your questions. I really appreciate receiving those and engaging with you. And I wish for you an amazing new moon in Sagittarius here coming up on Tuesday, and an awesome December and fresh start out of the year. Have a great, great, great one, and we'll talk really, really soon. I am going to end it there. Peace.